Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks to our friends at UETN for joining us as well. We're excited to get to hear from you and get some questions answered today. So, all right, we've got our recording going. Here's what we've got planned for today. We are going to give you a little bit of an introduction to what exactly we're talking about. This is UETN's ongoing Internet Consortium, which you might already be part of or you might have been part of in the past. We're going to talk about what they're offering, what they can do for your library. We're going to talk about what your library will need to do in order to be able to use it, and the process or the timeline if you want to join, or if this is something that you're already part of, what you can expect as far as rolling deadlines. And then we will get into a Q&A. We plan to leave plenty of time for you to ask questions, and we've got a lot of experts on the call here from UETN to really dig into anything you've got questions about. So we will start off with some introductions of the UETN team members. Jeff, do you want to start by describing who and what UETN is, and then we can go through and introduce each person?
Sure. I'm Jeff Fagley. I'm Associate Director with UETN Technical Services. And if you're not familiar with UETN, the Utah Education and Telehealth Network, we're funded through the state to connect education, K-20. We also work with healthcare around the state, rural clinics, hospitals, health departments. And then we've been working for years with libraries, but our library relationship and what we're able to fund and how we're able to work with you is changing in a very positive way. And that's what we'll be discussing today. But we connect all of education statewide right now. And then we connect many of the libraries throughout the state, but not all of you. And so that's what we're really looking forward to discuss and share with you today.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff. Okay, I'm just going to call on the UETN team members now. Kira?
Hi, everyone. I am the Utah State Library Advocate. Among other things, I also do technical project management for UETN. And I am thrilled to be here and hopefully get to see my face. I don't make it out to your libraries very often, but I'd love to meet more of you as time permits.
Thanks, Kira. Michael Bailey.
Hello, happy to be here. Mike Bailey, I'm the procurement manager, which basically means that I and my team, we do the paperwork for the RFPs every year. So we manage and maintain the internet connections, the contracts.
Thanks, Mike. Rich.
Hey, hello and good afternoon. I'm Rich Finlinson. I'm the Director of Communication for UETN.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Michael Shuping. You are muted.
You'd think I'd learn by now, wouldn't you? But good afternoon to everybody. This is Michael Shuping, and I am the Director of Administration here at UETN.
Thank you. Jerome.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jerome Browning. I'm the State E-rate Coordinator for the state of Utah. I'm also the administrator for the E-rate program, or the Consortium E-rate program at UETN. Glad to see you. Most of you already know me, and if you haven't known me, maybe you'll get a chance to know me soon.
Thanks, Jerome. Wes.
Hi, Wes Ferguson. I'm with the UETN Security Department, and I've been working with content filtering for the state of Utah for a long time.
Awesome. Elaine.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Elaine Casteller. I work with Michael Bailey and Michael Shuping on the procurement team, so I also handle the RFPs.
Thanks, Elaine. And finally, Troy.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Troy Jessup. I am the Associate Director over Operations and Security for UETN. We're the ones that make sure that the network stays up and highly reachable and effective. And we also do the security things as well. So there you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy. Thanks, everybody. So you've seen their names, you've seen their faces. We're going to make sure that you have everybody's contact information when we get into the question and answer period. You don't need to know who you're directing your question towards. Just ask generally. We'll see who jumps in. And then you're welcome to follow up with any one of these folks and they can answer your questions or point you in the right direction. So getting started, what we are planning, trying to get through today, I want you all to understand the value that's available to you here. There's not always a lot of resources, financially resources that we can point your library towards outside of what you're already using or what you're already expecting. The value of the Internet Consortium that UETN is offering here is incredible, and I think it's a great way to maximize the state's support for library services. And so I really ask you to consider, what we're sharing here today, what the opportunity is, and weigh if it's the right thing for your library. So I'm going to hand it over to Kira now to talk about this consortium.
So many of you are probably already aware of what UETN has to offer, and we're going to go into more detail in the following pages. But UETN, recently, we've been able to get more funding to help out libraries that we have not been able to pull or cover the full cost of your broadband connection and some equipment in the past, and now we're in a position to be able to do that. So we're trying to broadcast as much of this information as possible so that we can help as many of you as possible. So we're going to go through the E-rate portion of this. We're going to go through the procurement portion, paperwork needed, all those things, and introduce you to the various offerings that UETN has to share and provide with all the libraries in the state, all public libraries, and we're excited to do this. So be sure to listen in for all the things that have benefit to you, and ask questions and get our attention, and we will do whatever we can to help out. So first off, we've got a poll to try and gauge your interest, where you're at so far, like who all in the room is already a participant in the UETN's Library Internet Consortium. So you've got a few choices you can select from. You can do yes, no. In the past we have, but we're considering it, or just straight no if you don't know where you're at yet. Maybe you'll know a little bit better by the end of this webinar. So go ahead and put your answers in. We've got one of you that have answered so far. Probably UETN people. This probably goes without saying, but you don't need to answer this. This is for our library stakeholders in the room. Again, this is
same for any state library staff. Please do not answer this question.
Yeah, this is for Utah State Library stakeholders. So we'll give you we've still just got one person that have answered, because everybody knows.
I'm seeing 9 answers on the back end. Maybe give it another 10 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, so just make your choice. Already participate, or one version of no, and we'll see if we can possibly bring your answer to a little bit different choice by the end of this. So we've got 22% of you are yeses, 56 are no, but considering it, which is awesome, because that means you are in the right spot to get all the information you need. And 22% of you that are just a no, and maybe by the end of this, you'll have the information you need to either change it to know it, but maybe we're considering it now. So, okay, thank you for fulfilling that first poll, filling in the first poll question. Okay, next poll question. What are you most interested in hearing about today? So we're going to have some options for you. You can put in, I think we can pick more than one on this one, right, Liz? Multiple choice, you can pick more than one answer. So there's network services, which is the circuit, the router, the 24/7 NOC support, the E-rate filing and requirements, procurement process, coverage of non-E-rate monthly costs, SIPA compliance, SIPA compliant filtering, firewall requirements, local area network or LAN support, or something else, maybe something we didn't list here that you'll ask about later. So go ahead and put your answers in. I believe you can probably select more than one. And we'll give you another, since there's multiple choices on this one, they'll give you another 15, 20 seconds on that. And again, this is for our E-rate stakeholders to fill out. This will really help us figure out how to tailor our comments and our information to what you're most interested in, so that you're checking the boxes for what you need to learn and what we can provide for you. So go ahead and fill in your answers. I think maybe another 2 or 3 seconds. Liz, are you getting a good amount of? We should have about 14 library stakeholders here today so far. My last.
Yeah, I think I've got 9 responses. I think there might be
maybe 5 more that are still thinking about it.
some of those could be our state library staff.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so if you've answered, then we'll go ahead and close the poll, take a look at what the results are. Okay, this is awesome. 78% of you are here about network services, which is great. This is something that we have to offer that is a huge benefit to libraries, where we know your budget is usually stretched pretty thin, and this is an area that we can really provide a great service. 56% of you for E-rate filing and requirements, which is great because we've got Jerome and Linda Lane here, 2 highly trained and very experienced specialists for this area that make learning about E-rate actually much more interesting and fun than if you were just trying to do it on your own. Procurement process, which is very complex, so we're glad to have people with interest in that. Coverage of non-E-rate monthly costs. This is another of that top one where we can kind of help soften the blow to your yearly budgets. And SIPA compliant filtering, we've got Wes here and Troy here for that. Firewall requirements, we should have people here from our technical team that can help talk about firewall requirements. And then local area network support, 56% of you. And 11% was something else, which I feel like 11% might be one person. So I'm hoping at some point when we have some Q&A time, you pipe up with that one thing and see if we can't maybe answer that something else that you've got. Okay, benefits to libraries. This is my page also, I feel like.
I think I had this one, Kara.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, so Mike Shuping again, and I just wanted to briefly summarize the benefits that you'll receive by going with this program. But first off the bat, which was the largest percentage of the poll, was that you do receive a minimum of 1 gig circuit for your internet needs. That is monitored by our internal NOC, and it's done on a 24/7 basis. I think the next highest poll was E-rate procurement services, and myself and my team assist with the procurement and the E-rate program here, so we can certainly help you with those questions. SIPA compliant and content filtering support also comes along as a benefit to this program. And then all of the monthly recurring charges for this service is covered by our E-rate program and UETN. So that's what comes with it, and I'll turn it back to you, Kara.
Okay, and this one's me. So
Okay.
this is Jeff Fagley with UETN, and so as Mike mentioned, when we connect you moving forward, we are looking to ensure that all libraries are connected. Participating libraries are connected at a minimum of 1 gigabit. So that's ensuring a fiber-based service is brought into your library or libraries, and at a minimum of 1 gigabit, ensure you and your patrons have great access. As part of that, with E-rate, we do what's considered an end-to-end service. So we will have what's considered an edge device that service is terminated to. And in this case, currently we're using a Cisco 9200 switch with libraries. That could change over time. And that is what we'd consider our point of demarcation. We can monitor that. We can see when the circuit is up or down. We can help troubleshoot. We can help provide you statistics on utilization should you need more capacity down the road. So a minimum of 1 gigabit Ethernet connectivity to your library and each of your branches.
Okay, this slide is Jerome's.
Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button. Oh, there I am. Thank you. Well, UETN will be as the E-rate is key to the UETN, and it's primary source of one of our funding sources. So E-rate is very important. And one of the things that are very important to the E-rate program is the Children's Internet Protection Act. All of you will have to be compliant for that, but that's not just for E-rate, that's for the state as well. So, so we won't blame that all on E-rate. So, and most of you that have been doing this already with UETN already know what a Form 479. So before I'm not going to really tell you what that is right now, but there will be some training events coming up within the next month or so. And most of you already get an email from me, but you should be seeing some emails that I'll tailor a specific training just to you guys to make sure you're where you need to be with the E-rate filing and the SIPA compliancy. I mean, I could talk for days on E-rate, so I'll just cut it short right there.
Will you also mention the EPC?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No, you're
see
fine.
that. I see that on my little tiny screen there. All right. Oh yeah, EPC, E-rate Productivity Center. That is the location it's an online web tool that all applicants have to apply, have to access to put in their basic demographic information, primarily for libraries, this your square footage and things like that. And everybody has to have access to it. Some of you, libraries is fairly simple, so you don't have to go there a whole lot, but however, somebody within your library has to go in there to get to it. And I will be providing you training of how I can help you do that. So you won't have to worry about, well, how do I get in there? Because sometimes you don't go to this about once a year, and I'll be around to help you with that. And that'll be a part of my training.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike Bailey here with the procurement team. As you're seeing now, it's literally just kind of breaking down the process that we have in place, that we put out an RFP every month. So what we do usually in the time frame of the September-ish time frame is we develop, assist, and perform in statewide competitive procurement for UETN, which includes the WAN service, which is a point-to-point service that we provide. It's the 1 gig service that's been mentioned. We do have an ongoing spreadsheet that we manage and maintain all year long with the help of our advocates that we put together. And then when we put out the RFP, that could be a 45 to 60-day window, but after that we put together, we gather, and the cost analysis. We then are able to see what the internet vendors provide on the bid on the RFP, and then we put together a technical and cost analysis, and for the purpose of awarding the circuits that are out there. And then that's usually completed by the beginning of the following year, so January, February timeframe. And then around March, April, May periods is when we do contracts. We show the stakeholders, the libraries, the school districts, what we've have found in the RFP, and we draft up MOUs, which is memorandums of understandings, and we share that with the stakeholders, which is the libraries. And it's a year-long process, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. So.
One thing that Michael Bailey didn't mention is the amount of circuits that we go out to bid for every year. He made it sound simple and like it was not that big of a deal. It's a huge deal. We cover the entire state. So Michael Bailey, Elaine, and Michael Shuping, they do a huge undertaking by making sure we have the best pricing for every educational and telehealth site in the state. It's an enormous undertaking. And man, if you ever want to hear some cool stories about what we've been able to do for stakeholders, those three are great contacts for you. But I'll go into a little bit of content filtering. We do have Wes and Troy here, so I'll do a brief introduction, and then I'll let Wes maybe weigh in a little bit on what we've got for content filtering. Last year we did a statewide, this is kind of the first time we've ever done this, a statewide RFP, and a very extensive statewide RFP with over, I think we had 30 plus people from our stakeholders on our evaluation team. Now we did that to make sure that we had is many, I think Liz was on our evaluation team. She was actually, well, I don't know if I should tell how much she had an immense amount of influence and involvement. We had also Salt Lake City Public Library on our evaluation team that helped really evaluate what was of most value with content filtering for our library stakeholders. So that when we awarded, and we awarded 3 vendors, which we've never done before, it is a lot of organization on our part and a lot of coordination for Wes and Troy. But we did it to make sure that we don't just have a one-size-fits-all solution. We really understand that the best solution for a library is probably not going to be the same solution that would be best for a school district with, you know, thousands of students. We wanted to make sure that we had something that was matching your needs. So as we've talked about with the SIPA requirement, we don't need to go into that again, but this is part of that. We need to have content filtering in place to meet that requirement. We do have training and assistance made available through UETN, and that's what I'll let Wes talk a little. I'd like to just let him say hello and talk a little bit about this 3 solutions that we have available. So Wes?
Sure. Yeah, Liz, can you go ahead to the next slide? So the 3 vendors that Kara mentioned that we awarded in the last RFP are iBoss, Content Keeper, and NetSweeper. Now we were had an award exclusively with iBoss prior to this last RFP. We have a lot of experience with them. The other 2, Content Keeper, we have more experience with than we do with NetSweeper, but because Content Keeper was used by about 25% of our stakeholders, in spite of the fact that we were supplying iBoss. So this is one reason why we wanted to offer multiple vendors, is because we knew that there were some folks that felt like a different company suited their needs better. And so we wanted to offer those choices. So I think we did contact most of the libraries during that RFP process. And one thing that I do want to clarify, though, is that libraries are not required to go with one of these options. These are just the ones that UETN provides. Okay, so we pay the licensing cost for any of these 3. If you have a filtering solution that you're used to and you like, and it's filtering at a SEPA compliant level, so you're covered by, covered for the E-rate funding, then you can continue to use that and you don't need to move to one of these. If you don't have something, you can be onboarded to one of these providers at any time. And I am happy to give you all of the pros and cons and details of each one so that you can make an educated decision about how you'd like to move forward.
Thanks, Wes. And one thing we can also tell you, say you have a library or a couple libraries that you work closely with, just to get information, we can tell you, you can either ask them yourself what they use and what they like about it, or we can let you know what they use. So you have somebody that's like, an ally that can kind of talk you through it, although we're your allies as well. Yeah, so welcome to UETN. We'd love to provide content filtering for you if that's a benefit for you. I know last year when we first announced this, there are a few libraries that had a contract in place with the current content filtering solution. And of course, you can't just bail out on that whenever you like. But if you had a contract expire and you'd like to stop paying for that service and use one of our solutions, just let us know. We're in the open enrollment period now. It's April 1st through June 30th. And I think actually it should say June 1st, but I think you can be onboarded all the way through the end of June 30th. Okay, thank you.
So this slide is simply a visual for what we've been talking about with the RFP and the E-rate. So once we have our bids come in for the RFP and the awards are all done, we submit E-rate applications to a circuit. And just an example, if we, for Stansbury Library, if a circuit is $100 a month, we submit our E-rate application. E-rate comes back and says, you know, we'll pay 40%, which will leave 60% that UETN will cover. And I think with the libraries on the call, the bottom portion of this slide is probably what you want to pay attention to, because you will not get an invoice for that circuit. So it's really a wonderful solution that we have to offer. So.
Michael, will you also mention the possibility of one-time fees?
Yeah, so most of the one-time fees are going to be covered. If you want to look at it, is how the circuit is what it needs to happen in order for the circuit to get to the property. So usually the vendors will give us a bid, which will include one-time fees. And if it's not way astronomical or out of the ordinary, that UETN will pay for that. I will give you a quick heads up that if a library comes to us and says, you know, we're revamping our equipment room and we want to cosmetically make it look prettier, you know, that we might not cover. But for the one-time fees to get the circuit installed will be a part of the RFP process, and the vendors will be upfront with us. We have a wonderful partnership with all the vendors throughout the state of Utah, and then the vendors that are outside the state. So it's a pretty good deal.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so that is what UETN is offering you. Let's get into what they're going to ask of you. I think this is well worth it. You've just seen, you know, the value, but we're going to go through exactly what they're going to ask for in each of these categories. But I'm just going to hand it right back to the UETN team. I think this one is Jeff.
This is me, but I'll also, you know, with Troy and Wes on, you know, they may have things they want to share. One requirement is ensuring that you have a firewall in place. And what we're asking is that with bringing gigabit in, that you're providing a 1 gig capable firewall that can pass that level of traffic. Lisa Kuhn, our CFO, I think one thing she would offer up here too is with UETN covering these costs, if you need to upgrade that firewall, perhaps the savings with covering these circuit costs may help contribute to an upgrade in the coming year to that firewall to meet that. But this is a requirement. It's up to the library to choose what that solution is, what they put in place. But it's always a consideration, especially if you're a smaller library and perhaps you have not had that level of capacity in the past. Something that just a cost you'll want to factor in to make sure you've got the appropriate firewall in place to handle that level of traffic and just provide a good experience for your patrons. Troy or Wes, anything else you would add to just firewall?
I would add that I know that some of the libraries don't have their own network team. Maybe you're a smaller library and you don't have somebody on staff that's IT support. So if you'd like to call the security department and ask for recommendations, or just talk about what would be the right firewall for your environment, we're absolutely happy to talk to you about that and answer any questions that you have.
That's great. And I'll add to that too. You may be here today and say, hey, I need to pull in that IT person from my city or my county. Reach out and then we can have that discussion, pull in the appropriate resources and make sure we're answering all the questions for you, whether it's on the network side or a firewall or filtering side. Would be glad to circle back with you and have that discussion.
Let me just add real quick one other thing. Even though having a firewall is a requirement on your end, being part of the UETN network affords you a lot of other security protections, because we're constantly monitoring and combating several large-scale security issues and incidents that you won't even see come to your network because of some of the work that we're doing. And so there's, even though you're responsible for a firewall and the security within your own section of the world, within your organization, there is a lot of protections in place that we're providing for those that are part of that network.
That's a good point.
Thanks, Troy.
Okay, thank you all. One last thing to mention here. I don't know how widely the requirement for a firewall at this level has been talked about before. We've recently seen that some of your libraries are experiencing pretty low speeds in your building, even though UETN is delivering a high speed to the building. This could be the reason. So especially if you're seeing very low speeds and you are already connected, this is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, and you know what? I just wanted to weigh in quickly. I see Kim Griffiths on the call. Not to call her out by any means, but there is a we did the speed tests at all your libraries, and there was a few sites where they had not the bandwidth that we were paying for. So we had some of our field guys go out and help troubleshoot and see if maybe there was some issues happening or caused by either the equipment, our equipment, or equipment in your libraries, or maybe it's a bandwidth issue with our telcos. And there was, I'll tell you, a couple sites where the telco had not upgraded the site to the bandwidth that we had contracted for like 2 years ago. So when they were running speed tests, they were getting this lower bandwidth. It was because the telco hadn't upgraded them appropriately. So there's lots of things that we can do to help you troubleshoot these issues. And I don't know if Kim had a good experience. I think there was a good experience. The field guy that went out there had really nice things to say about your libraries there in Tremont. So well, that is another service we'll provide to help troubleshoot what might be the slowdowns with speed tests in your libraries.
Okay, I think this slide is Jerome's, although we have talked about content filtering a little bit. Jerome, anything more you want to add about the library's responsibility for content filtering?
I just wanted to also add on the content filtering. That is a major requirement in the E-rate program and state law. But I also want to mention that, there are other elements to the Children's Internet Protection Act. So, and that's going to be a part of the training process that'll be coming up very soon. So just want to bring that to your attention. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read a little screen here. Okay, so I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
I'll be on the question and answers later on.
Thanks, Jerome. And then I have a note for myself to mention that I know content filtering is a thing that, we kind of have to sit with to get comfortable with it. The state code is very specific that we are allowed to lift the filter for adult patrons at their request. And so there are ways to do this with all 3 of the content filtering solutions that are being offered to you. There are instructions already written out specifically for IBOS, a step-by-step instructions. And if you are using one of those other solutions and you need those step-by-step instructions, we can work on making those for you as well.
Good point. Okay.
Another thing, if I could chime in real quick. When we go through our E-rate audits, we need to provide some documentation that shows that organizations are filtering, and we have an email list set up that you can send that documentation to. It's filterreporting@list.uen.org. So just be aware of that. If you're not using one of ours, you might need to pull a report from the content filter that you are using and send it into that once or twice a year.
Can you add that email to the chat, Wes?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, I have this as mine, local area network support. There are points of contact that we need from you. This could be your library director, if you have an IT person assigned to your site, that would be their name. Sometimes I know in some of your areas you use your city or your county IT person, we need those names as well. We don't typically provide local area network support, but we can help troubleshoot, you know, on a small scale, and maybe help get in touch with the right person so that we can get you set up. I know in a couple cases of speed issues, it was really old LAN equipment that was possibly a cause for not getting the bandwidth that was contracted for the sites. So we do help troubleshoot a little bit, and we're always able to help find resources for you if you just do not have an IT person, which I know is the case in some of the rural areas. So I know we've been in touch to try and find at least part-time or on-call IT staff is needed in some of those areas. Okay, I think this one mine as well. Paperwork cycle. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth. Okay, paperwork you expect to see. All right. There's a few things that are needed in order to get rolling. There's a letter of agency, which we call affectionately an LOA. And then this is something you do once and you do not have to do again. An annual something that we need from you is that SIPA form, Child Internet Protection Act. And Jerome, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we do this via DocuSign, so it should be relatively easy for you to tap a few clicks on your phone or with your mouse to get those signed and back in. It's another.
Yeah, in most cases, we do this. We basically send you the DocuSign. We basically fill it all out for you. We want you to make sure you read it. Then you just click a button and sign it, and then it's back to us. And you may see Miss Linda Lane involved with that. So that will be coming up very soon for those who are already on the process and those who are new to the process.
Yeah, thank you, Jerome. It's another reason why
It's Linda, and also that letter of agency, that is good for a 5-year period. It
That's
does
what I
have to be
thought.
renewed every 5 years.
Okay, so scratch that once, it's every 5 years. I kind of read that and I thought, is that a new thing? And thank you, Linda, for piping up with that. That is once every 5 years. So thank you for pointing that out, Linda. And this is just another reason why it's great to keep us apprised of who your library directors are. I know some of these things change, and but yes, if you can keep us updated on who your contacts are, we'll make sure you get all the forms in a timely manner. On a 3-year cycle, we've already talked about the internet. Oh, we haven't talked about the online acceptable use policy. On a 3-year rotating cycle, we would need a copy of your policy there. And then on a 5-year cycle, any forms related to the RFP for broadband service. And at the top of my head, and please correct me, Michael Shuping, Bailey, and Elaine, if there is anything besides the MOU that they would need to sign, because all that's coming to mind is an MOU. Is there anything else?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just real quick on that SIPA, I know that that's usually done in the month of May. So the stakeholders will get that in May. So
that's good.
Time
Good
frame.
to point out. Can be watching for it. And I know that we're bringing all this up. This is a recorded session, so we'll have this available to you. But I know when things only happen once every 3 or 5 years, it's kind of tricky to remember what this is and why it's needed. So I'm just going to throw my name out there again as your state library advocate. If you ever get anything from UETN and you're confused about what it is, if you don't want to contact the person that sent it to you, or you're not sure who sent it to you, always reach out to me and I will figure out what you're getting and why it's needed and put you in touch with the right people or help you resolve any of your questions. And then the ongoing basis is that you maintain your E-rate records for 10 years. And I'm wondering if E-rate team can pipe up with how long, isn't there a requirement, or is UETN satisfying the requirement for keeping that proof of content filtering in place? How often is that needed? It seems like it's a quarterly basis that we run those reports, but is UETN supplying that need, or is that going to our libraries?
I'll let Wes talk about the periodic reports. We need that at least in the fall and the spring as well, as far as E-rate goes, running those reports. And we need to keep those reports, those activity reports from your content filtering for a period of 10 years.
Okay, so that's the same as the E-rate records, is that content filtering
Yeah,
reporting?
and Your three-year cycle for the online internet online acceptable use policy. We'll have some more training on that soon, but I mean, that's fine if you do it every 3 years, but generally you can do it once, and as long as you don't change anything, you can keep the same acceptable use policy until something changes. Then you have to get a copy of it.
Okay. Thanks, Jerome.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think we're going to talk about our timeline, our deadlines for new consortium members. Now, if you're by the end of this session or within the next couple months or so, you think this is something you'd like to look into, here's some really important dates for you to remember. So spring, where we're at now, we're doing this webinar. We've got some one-on-one consultation time. So we have until August 15th for you to kind of make up your mind on whether or not you'd like to try this out. Now, I will point out, you can decide that you'd like to try this out, but are not held to anything. So say, for example, we go out to bid on behalf of your site because you're interested by the end of this webinar or sometime before August. And then at some point during that time, maybe your city offers you free internet or something changes where you're no longer interested in the results of the RFP that UETN is going out for. Then when we get those awards back or the potential for award, we reach out to you or you let us know in advance, and then we do not have to award. So just because we go out to bid on your behalf does not lock you in at that point. It's a good idea to maybe just give it a try, see if it works out. And if we're able to help you in any way, then we move forward. And if it's not a benefit to you, then you are not required to do this. This is just meant to be a benefit and not a hindrance. So spring, that's from now until August 15th. You have some time to meet with me and meet with any of the people from the UETN team or Utah State Library, the people you see here today. Ask us questions, get all your concerns hopefully cleared up, and decide whether or not you'd like to be listed on UETN's RFP in August. That's when we would like to see your LOA returned. The deadline, I guess, August 15th. That's our ability to act on your behalf, to go out to bid on your behalf. The letter of agreement that will come to you and it'll have an electronic signature via DocuSign. The RFP happens this summer, so it will be prepared starting in August, but it will go out to bid sometime between August and September. And then we get those bids back. Let's see how many details. I think we've covered most of those things. We get
I would just add, Kara, I think one important element while the RFP is released late September, as you referenced earlier, it's quite a large RFP. So a lot of the letter of agency were basically saying, we need that commitment. What do you want to do by middle of August so that can be included in the RFP? And so really need that detail in August that you want to participate, and then we'll include your location or locations if you have a number of branches in the RFP. So August 15th, really important timeline to get included.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. That is a big date for us, and like we were saying, it is a big RFP every year. Every year we think, oh, maybe it won't be that big this year, and then every year it's like hundreds and hundreds of lines on these. Bless Michael Shuping's team for their diligence with this, because the amount of detail they need to have locked down for these RFPs is just monumental. So we appreciate you getting us information as early as you can to hit these deadlines. Again, January is when we start getting these things evaluated for potential award. Then we would reach out to you to make sure that you wanted us to proceed with the award. And then March is the timeline for the E-rate filing, and new service would start at any point after July 1. Now, E-rate requires that it be from July 1 forward. But as you can imagine, if we're awarding, say, 800 different circuits around the state, we only have maybe, well, let's say 10 vendors. Each of those vendors potentially gets a very lengthy list of installs. We do tend to prioritize new sites as priority 1, so we get started on them right away. But usually, if you're a new circuit or a new site or a new stakeholder with UETN's consortium, it usually doesn't start the minute of 7/1 or July 1st. We work with our vendors. We have great vendors. They're very responsive and fast, but we just tend to start laying them out and checking them off as we get through them. But we can work with you if you have a specific date that you need us to consider, and we'll work our best to try and make that date happen. Okay. Steps to join the consortium. I'm sorry, I have to flip back and forth. This one's me. Okay. What's next? So this is time for you to kind of assess what you've heard in this webinar. Of course, you'll have some time to ask questions, and you can do some one-on-one meetings, but you evaluate the pros and cons of whether or not this solution or what UETN has to offer is a benefit to your agency or your library. Then you would reach out to us with any questions. And then at some point when the contract has been signed and we have awarded a circuit on your behalf, there would be an MOU that you would sign, just letting you know of the obligations that you have. Now, you might be wondering, why are we going to have an MOU if UETN is picking up the cost? And maybe I'm answering one of your questions in advance, but I'll just tell you, the MOU is a really important document for us to both have. One, so that you know what UETN is doing on your behalf, and two, so that you know what obligations you have. I think in the MOU, and Michael Bailey and Elaine, I know you guys are working on MOUs right now. There's a few things in there, and I think maybe one of them I know is like you agree not to disconnect service without talking to UETN first. There's a few things that you agree to do. I don't know, Michael Bailey, if you've got those memorized or not.
No, you're spot on. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
There's
we're good.
There's a few things in there. And also I know quite often your cities and counties want to know what benefits you're getting from other organizations. And so I've had a few libraries reach out to me and say, what is the dollar value of what UETN is providing? So if you have that MOU in hand, you'll be able to see, okay, UETN is paying $300 a month from this circuit for us. We're getting a $300 a month times 12 months, $3,600 a year for this relationship that we have with UETN. And that quite often needs to be reported to your city and county financial people. So that's one of the reasons that it's great to have these MOUs, even if UETN is picking up the cost. There's generally a partnership in this arrangement. We want to make sure that you understand what we're doing and that you understand what we need from you as well.
Kira,
Yeah,
Jerome,
go ahead.
just
Go
want
ahead.
just want to mention that we mentioned the three letters LOA a while ago. A letter of
Letter of
agreement,
agency.
letter of agreement, letter of agency, they all mean the same thing. All right. So if you're new to us, to the program or to the consortia, and your services are going to be included with the E-rate, we basically, if we don't have an LOA on file, we have to have an LOA on file before we do the RFP. So just wanted to let you know that will come up along the way.
Yeah, let's see. It seemed like we had that a few pages back on when the LOA was due, but that's a great point. Thank you, Jerome.
It's just a reminder.
Yes, the LOA is very important. We need that to be able to act kind of on your behalf, basically. Okay.
Okay, I think that's all the planned content that we have. We wanted to leave plenty of time for you to ask questions. So just a couple of things as we get started. For folks that have called in on the phone, you can press *6 if you'd like to unmute. So you can ask a question that way. You can re-mute yourself, and we can mute you on our end as well. So that's *6 for people on the phone. And go ahead and unmute. You can ask your question out loud. You are also welcome to put it in the chat. If you want your question to be anonymous, you can send it to me directly, and I will I'll say the question out loud, and then I'll just give sly hints about who might have asked it. And if there is someone asking a question and you don't want to cut them off, go ahead and use the raise hand function to just queue yourself up next. So let's go ahead and open it up. Hit us.
No,
Liz, can you hear me? This is Linda from the Garland Library. So I'm not sure, I'm not very savvy on what this all is, and I don't even know if we have it. Would someone be willing to come up to my library and maybe, explain to me if this is even something that we can use? We are a very small library.
I think that is totally a possibility. I don't know if I can just pipe up maybe correct me if I'm wrong, UETN team, but we have field engineers that are out in your communities pretty much every day of the week, minus maybe the weekend sometimes, although I know they work on weekends. We can schedule someone to come up and come by your library and talk through what we have to offer, and maybe even kind of go over some of the speed tests, that sort of thing. Take a look at your firewall, or maybe see, you know, what you have in place and what we might be able to do to help out. And as far as Garland Public Library, the back of my mind says, I actually can check and see if you're already on our network or not.
I don't think they are.
I
I
don't
just,
think so either. So
I
we
just
can
double check. We got
see.
the
Oh, good,
elementary
good, good,
school
good.
covered, but
So Garland, we absolutely can work with you. What's important for you to find out is, are you already getting free internet from your city? And if you're happy with it, if this service is great, you're getting great speeds, there's no slowdowns, no issues, that might be something you want to stay with. We are here to add value, but not make your life more difficult, right? So we're here to help out with whatever we can. If UETN can be a benefit to you as far as providing internet service or broadband service, then we'd love to do it. And so maybe we can talk afterwards, and I'll see what I can do to get one of our field guys up in your area.
That would be great. We don't get free internet through our, we
okay,
have
you already know.
customers. And also you mentioned that you might could find like local IT people, because we don't even have an IT person. So
You are not alone in that. There are a few of your fellow libraries that are struggling with that same situation. So let's talk after this, and we'll see if maybe I know of anybody, or we can pull some of our UETN's technical team, which we have a huge technical team that live all over the state. Maybe they know somebody, or they'd be willing to recommend someone that lives nearby and might be able to do some on-call work.
okay. That would
Yeah,
be great.
and one of them, you know, something we can share offline too is with some of our charters and with Head Starts we serve. They often have outsourced with somebody that provides that, and so we could share those contacts who they're working with as well.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah. Possibly with the amount you'd be saving from not having to pay for your broadband, that might free up a little bit of budget to pay for somebody's hours to come in and provide support to your site. It's a good way to repurpose those funds.
If I remember, back in the day, I installed an iBoss content filter out at Garland Library. You might want to look in your, sorry about, I don't know if you guys can hear, but they're doing announcements right now. Give me a second.
Let's go on to another question, and we'll come back to Wes's answer in just a moment. Have other questions?
I'm going to jump in and say I've got an action item. Linda, I'm going to send you an email introducing Kira, so you have an email right away. And then we have a question in the chat. Carol asks, how do we get Jerome's training if we are not on his email list?
Good question.
I will defer this to Linda, but my email address is Jerome, Jerome, @uen.org. And you can email me or Linda Lane. And Linda, what's your email address? Linda's still with us.
Unmuted here. My
All right.
email address is Linda, LINDA .Lane, LANE @utah.edu. I do have 2 mailing listservs. One has everybody that's currently participating with us, and the other has all of the libraries that are on the state directory. So we do have 2 listservs. The problem is I've been reconciling them and adding people to the list, and they are getting, I think they're going into their junk mail or something, and we're not getting a response. So they're not getting connected to our distribution list, but it's really important that they get connected, because that's how Jerome sends out communications about training availability, different criteria that's coming up, the emergency connectivity fund, all that information went out via the distribution list. So yeah, if you need to be added to that distribution list, Jerome and I can get you added, verify that you're not currently on it, and get you added. Easy.
So I've just put both Linda and Jerome's emails in the chat. And so go ahead and send an email to either one of those.
Thank you.
Wes, are you clear to finish your answer?
Yeah, sorry about those announcements always come at the worst moments, but I think what I was saying is I vaguely remember installing an iBoss content filter at Garland Library, which is probably something that I should mention, even if you're not on not on UEN's network, you can still take advantage of our content filtering program.
Good point.
But specifically the one installed at Garland very likely is old and out of date and needs to be updated and or replaced. So we should probably talk about that.
Okay, thanks, Wes.
I'm just gonna +1 what Wes just said. You do not have to be part of this internet consortium to use the content filtering products that UETN contracts for. So like they've all been saying, if you've got a good deal with your city, great, maybe it's best to stick with that, but the content filtering is still available to you. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I have a last poll that I want to launch because our UETN friends really want to know this.
Yes. How successful was this webinar? Did we answer questions? Did we help eliminate concerns? Did we clear up anything? Are you interested in participating in the UETN Library Internet Consortium in the future? And so we have a few options here. You could still be on the fence. Absolutely take your time, think this through. This could be an NA, we're already participating, a no thanks, maybe, but I need more attention, or yes, exclamation point. I love that. So if you're of any of those mindsets, please put your answer in. We should have about 12 responses, maybe a few less. And we'll give you a few seconds to pick your answer. This does not lock you in. This is us gauging how well we've answered questions today and how well we prepared information to help you come to a good decision here. This does not lock you in. You can still think about it. We have till about August for you to get your LOAs in and signed and to meet with me if you need, or E-rate people, procurement people to get questions answered. Maybe we can talk about the technical setting at your particular library. But now's the time where we start this process. So if you feel like this is something you'd like to investigate further, mark your answer in your poll. And Liz, how are we looking? Do we feel like we've got enough answers in?
Yeah, we've got 7 answers. We might have had some people leave since we've hit the hour now. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that.
Oh, these are awesome results. Thank you. I don't know if you're just flattering us, if this is legit. I'm going to say it's legit because I'm flattering myself, but 57% of you are yes, which I'm thrilled about. We'd love to see how we can help your libraries to save money and have great, safe, secure internet. And then 43% of you, maybe, but you need more information. We also love that answer. It means we still have an opportunity to help find out more information or answer questions that you may have. So thank you. Thank you for participating in that poll. All right.
Okay. We're at the top of the hour. Yeah. Let's see. Follow-up items. I've got a couple emails I'm going to send. This has been recorded, so we're going to make sure to send out the link to the recording pretty shortly. We'll get that out to you, and we'll also have this archived so you can come back and watch this later. Even if you need to come back next year and watch this again, we'll keep this information for you. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And to the UETN team, while we've got you here, I know we didn't have a ton of time for questions. So if any of you libraries still on have any last burning questions, maybe we'll leave this room open for just a couple more minutes.
Yes, I can hang out. Just let me.
Great.
Just check my schedule real quick, but I feel like I am okay for at least a couple of minutes. It's quiet. That's a good sign. That means we've answered questions well. I still see Garland Library on and Emory County Library System. Any questions for either of you, Desiree or Linda? Okay.
I have a question. I
Sounds
think
great.
I know the answer. So in order to participate in this, you have to be a certified library, correct?
Liz, do you want to answer that one? I know there are some.
Yeah, so to file for E-rate, you do have to be a certified library. I'm going to say it's up to the UETN team which of these services are going to be available to you if you're not quite ready to file for E-rate yet.
Okay,